Who was the best president? Under which president did the economy do best? Do presidents really matter? For many years, a few days before each of the last several presidential elections in the United States, I would release a comparative analysis of all of these major economic development indicators under different presidents, going all the way back to Bill Clinton. And I would look at things like GDP per capita, unemployment, a labor force participation rate, trade deficit, border crossings, stock market performance, just to see who was the best president. But I wasn't sure if I need to do it this year. This political cycle is so polarizing and so emotionally charged that I thought maybe I should skip this year. But then I thought, hey, you know what? My goal here is not to tell you who will be the best president or whom to vote for. If anything, the conclusion, as you will see from this analysis, is that maybe presidents don't really affect the economy that much. So let's go one by one and you decide what you want to make out of these numbers. So first, the most obvious indicator, GDP. And so we have here total GDP, GDP per capita, and annual GDP change under the presidents going all the way back to 1990, so 35 years. So as you can see, the GDP has been growing relatively steadily, and I have a hard time attributing these changes to any of the individual presidents. We do see a drop here right during the Great Recession at the end of Bush's the second term. But yeah, then it just simply started going relatively steadily up as it was before. We see another slight drop during the COVID pandemic right here. But then again, it quickly rebounded and went back to normal. So some people may say, well, the economy is doing the best under Biden because the GDP per capita, total GDP is the highest possible. Others may say, well, the latest growth was what, like 2% per year, and there were a few years when it was higher under different presidents like Clinton here. But to be honest, I don't really see a huge effect of presidents. If anything, the slope of growth under under Biden is steeper than under previous presidents, but again, it could be just because there was a drop due to COVID, so there was a quick recovery. Annual growth, if anything, I guess Clinton perhaps had the most consistently high growth in terms of the annual percent change. But otherwise, I don't know, I would be reluctant to say that GDP did better under one president than another. Yes, some people may point to the dip following Trump's last year, but again, it was COVID. I don't think that was something that one president did leaving the office or the other one did going into the office. But one thing is for sure, we cannot say that the economy was doing better under Trump than under Biden based on the GDP per capita, total GDP, or GDP change. I don't really see a drastic change here. If anything, it may be doing somewhat better under Biden. At least the growth seems to have accelerated. Unemployment, again, so here let's go back all the way to the 90s. So there was a definite market unemployment rise during the Great Recession, so towards the end of the Bush's presidency. But then since then, it's been dropping from about 10% very, very, very steadily. And then obviously it went over 14, almost to 15% during COVID, but then equally sharply it dropped. So was unemployment better under Trump than under Obama? Yes, it was. Was it due to Trump? I don't know. I mean, if I remove these lines here that separate where one president stops and the next one starts, I'm not even sure if you would then be able to tell me where one president stopped and another one started. So it seems like it was a steady trend. Again, Biden inherited a very dire situation due to COVID, and then it dropped. Was it because of Biden or because of Trump? I don't know. It seems to me that COVID was a special case. So unemployment slowly went up under Biden, but it's basically now, I mean, like, look at it. So now it's like 4.1%, 4.2%, and that's among the lowest it's ever been. So therefore, it's hard to say, and I would only say that under Trump and under Biden, it seems like it was somewhat lower under Trump, but again, it doesn't look like it was due to Trump. and then it seems to be extremely good under Biden. And if anything, I guess here, I don't know, I mean, would you credit Obama for producing, like, given this trend here? I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like presidents played a crucial role here. The bigger economic trends seem to be much, much more important. So, although, I don't know, something happened under Bush, definitely, and then I guess it reversed the trend under Obama, so maybe we can affect or credit unemployment rates to presidents. And if so, again, Trump inherited a downward trend under that he got from Obama. It stayed as it was, but then Trump, I guess, finished the term with the worst possible numbers. Then Biden took the office with the worst possible numbers, but then again, trend continued and it dropped down. So I wouldn't read too much into this number. A more interesting figure is labor force participation rate. So those of you who don't know, the unemployment is calculated as the percentage of people who are actively seeking jobs and cannot find jobs. But it does not include people who are not looking for a job. Maybe they gave up and stopped looking, maybe they're just not interested in working, so they wouldn't be counted in unemployment statistics. So likewise, like stay-home moms, for example, or dads. So if they're not looking for a job, they're not counted unemployed. So labor force participation, that's the actual number of eligible workers who actually work. And if you go all the way back to like 2000, so we would have about 67% working. Then under Bush, these numbers went slightly down, and I probably should have found numbers going further back. So these rates have been around 65-70% for a long time, then went slightly up, slightly down. But yes, so the number has been hovering around 67 during the Bush era. Then it went down under Obama, although it stabilized. It's not a huge difference, but it's from about 66% to about 63%. And then it stabilized. So if anything, it actually got somewhat worse under Obama. So like 2% fewer people started working. Then it stayed about the same under Trump. Maybe it went like a fraction of a percentage up, but then dropped sharply during COVID. Again, was it because of Trump? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't blame it on Trump. It probably was the pandemic. Then Biden inherited a pretty bad situation. So the labor force participation rate was one of the lowest ever when he took the office. So a little over 61%. And since then, under Biden, the numbers have been climbing. So historically, the numbers are still fairly low, but they're definitely better than when they were when Biden took the office. But again, is it just simply returning back to normal after COVID? Is it a growth? Hard to say. So if I look at this overall trend, it seems like, yeah, other than some fluctuations, it's like a slow drop from 67 to about 3%. So I don't know. So the trend is positive under Biden, but it seems to be more of a recovery after COVID. It was very stable under Trump, even started slightly growing, but then dropped. So not convincing to me to say that one president was better than the other. So it was the best under Bush, but downward trending, better under Obama than Trump or Biden, but downward trending, stable and even somewhat growing under Trump, but then sharp drop, and then steady growth under Biden, but it seems to be more of a kind of bounce back as opposed to just absolute growth, right? So public debt, that's basically how much money the government owes the world. And so here we see a disturbing trend. So the public debt of the United States government has been growing steadily for a long time. So Clinton was the last president when it was more or less under control, though still growing, and percentage-wise it was a growth. Then it really accelerated under Bush. I guess those wars cost something. Then it accelerated even more under Obama. So I suppose here you could see like clear trends. So like the trajectory changes right away. But then again, was it Obama's fault or not? So Obama, as you remember, inherited the economy during the Great Recession. And so both still under Bush, there was this bailout package to help the banks. And then Obama continued with that same trend. So while it was spending that we probably didn't want to have but it was perhaps also spending that allowed us to recover after the Great Depression. Now Trump took the office, and yeah, you can actually see a very sharp increase, especially after 2018, the tax reform. So one of the actual consequential things that President Trump did was passing the 2018 tax reform, and it did cut taxes. We can argue all day long, did it cut taxes for the right groups or not, but it did reduce the taxes. And so apparently the government did not reduce the spending, and to finance that spending, the government had to borrow more money. And so you can see a sharp increase here. And then obviously the COVID pandemic required some additional spending, and so the trend continued. So again, other than this market increase under Trump to compensate for the budget deficit, I suppose again it still looks like the overall trend, but it doesn't look like Trump was more fiscally frugal than Biden, or I guess a little bit less fiscally frugal than Obama. So Trump definitely was borrowing more, and definitely more than Clinton. But overall, again, it seems like it just seems to be the trend. So I'm yet to see how it will change under the new president, whoever becomes the new president. But so here, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to keep score and say that one president was better than the other. Although here I kind of lean towards, but then again, I mean, some people believe that cutting corporate taxes especially was important, and the only way to do, or once you've done it, you have to borrow money to cover the budget deficit. So I'll let you decide, but you see the numbers here. Now, stock market performance. I wouldn't read too much into it, even though many people believe that Dow Jones and S&P 500 are measures of economy. No, they're not. It's just a measure of essentially demand for stocks and prices, stock prices. But, let's take a look here. So when Trump was president, he used to brag a lot about how the stock market is doing well under him or during his 4 years. But then again, so we saw a sharp drop during the COVID pandemic, and then an equally quick recovery under President Biden. There was this another hiccup, but again, we are now at 42,000. Actually, the numbers touched 43 at some point for Dow Jones, and this is the highest ever. And so can you say that the stock market is doing better under Biden than Trump? I mean, obviously the numbers are higher, but it seems like the whole trend started under Obama. So the Great Recession, the stock market crashes, but since then it's just a steady trend upwards. Can you say, I mean, if anyone can be credited with this, it probably would be the Obama when the trend started. But then again, I'll leave it up to you to decide. And if you want to blame this dip on Trump or on COVID, as well as the current numbers, is it just the continuation of the trend, or the Biden administration's doing that led to this strong market? So here we have the same for S&P 500. And so exactly the same trend. So sharp drop at the end of the Bush term, the Great Recession, and then a steady growth since then. A noticeable drop during the COVID pandemic, back up, a drop, but then recovery, and the best ever at this time under President Biden. So hard to say, but I would not rush to conclusions based on these numbers as to which one was the best president. I guess it was definitely worse under Bush than anyone else, but otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, and it seems like it was doing very well under Clinton, but again, I wouldn't credit presidents with strong effects on the markets. Inflation, here is another one. So let's see what's going on here. So inflation has been relatively steady around like 3%, right? So it definitely, so there are several market or noticeable trends. So during the Great Recession, we saw lower inflation. So the economic crisis obviously reduced spending. We saw a couple of years of high inflation under Biden, for sure. But then again, as you can see here, the numbers have returned back to almost normal, so close to 4%. So inflation was lower under Trump, but then it was lower overall. It was growing. it did drop in the last year, but that was probably due to COVID. So obviously we had a year when people didn't travel. So there were all kinds of other problems. So I don't know. I mean, like if you look at the numbers under Obama, they were going down, under Trump going up. I don't know. I mean, yes. So we can definitely say that the inflation was higher in the first 2 years of the Biden's term. But again, was it really due to Biden? Maybe. The inflation has dropped to more or less, not quite normal yet, but substantially. But again, the price increase rate stopped or dropped, but the prices didn't go down. Will they go down under the next president? And if that president will be Trump, I don't know. But at the same time, if the prices returned to pre-pandemic levels, I mean, we would have a major deflation. That actually would be economically disastrous. So I don't think prices are going back. And if they were, I'm not even sure if it would be a good thing. Here is an interesting chart also that I included that you need to understand that the inflation we saw in 2001, 2, 3, it was not a US thing. So we saw the same inflation and in fact much higher inflation all around the world. Here are the figures for some of the European countries and the Euro area altogether. And so if it were because of Biden, it would be only in the United States, but it was everywhere. And in fact, in the United States, the inflation rate was lower than it was in Eurozone, in Germany, or in France. So if anything, I'm inclined to thank Biden for inflation that was lower here than it was in Europe, although I did not like inflation that high. As I said, it seems to be returning back to lower levels, but definitely not quite under 2% like what we saw during the COVID years. So again, I would be very, very careful about blaming inflation in this case on a president. In Biden's case, it seems like it was more due to COVID and the disruptions it caused. But as I said, if you think that it was better under Trump, well, if anything, it seemed to have been actually growing under Trump. So, and dropping only because of COVID. So be very careful before you either thank a president or blame a president for high or low inflation. Very careful. Manufacturing. So again, for some reason, many people seem to believe that manufacturing jobs are more important than some other jobs. I don't know. It seems to me that maybe, I don't know, people in other sectors of the economy are equally important. But if you want to look at manufacturing, well, let's take a look here. So again, you could see some changes up and down. So in terms of total manufacturing output in terms of billions of dollars or as a percentage of GDP. But it seems to me the trend is more long term, and I'm not sure if we can blame or credit it to one single president. So we have here, as you can see, a steady growth in terms of billions of dollars, but at the same time it's less and less as a percentage of GDP. So 25, 30 years ago it was about 16% of GDP, and now it's closer to about 10, 11%. It seems like it's going somewhat up now lately, but again, is it simply rebounding after the drop due to COVID? I don't know. Likewise, yes, it was better under Trump, for example, than under Obama. But was it because of Trump, or was it just a continuation of the trend? So it seems like we had an upward trend, Great Recession went down, then the trend resumed. Was that something that Obama did, or did it just simply post downturn recovery? So I don't know. I mean, I do see some differences from president to president, but it seems to me like it's more of a global long-term trend as opposed to the actual policies of a specific president. And so yes, now we have more more manufacturing output under Biden than under Trump. Does it mean that Biden is better for the manufacturing jobs? We see some improvement as the percentage of GDP now, and I don't have the latest figures, but again, I wouldn't jump to conclusions here, and I wouldn't thank one or blame one of the presidents, because it seems to me the trends here are much stronger, that are trends that are long term. So here is another one. So these are manufacturing jobs. So here we looked at the output in absolute numbers and as a percentage of GDP. Here we have the number of jobs. And as you can see, the number of jobs has been steadily decreasing in manufacturing. So that's in basically millions, so thousands of persons. So we had at some point up to 19 million people working in manufacturing. Then it was relatively stable for a while. So the Bush Senior, Reagan, in fact, if it looks like it actually went down under Reagan. I should have probably added them here. So it was more or less stable and started to go down under Bush Senior. Actually increased somewhat under Clinton, sharply down under Bush Jr., continues to go down under Obama, but again, that's probably the economic crisis of 2008, 2009, but then a steady recovery. Then Trump inherits the trend, and it continues to go up. But again, was it because of Trump's actions, or it just simply continued under Obama? If anything, it first slowed and then it recovered. Then we have COVID. Boom, it goes down like by almost 1 million jobs in manufacturing, but then quickly rebounds again. So was it because Biden did something, or was it just simply a natural return to the normal for the market? And then it's been relatively steady since then. So I don't really see anything that would tell me that Trump or Biden was remarkably better at creating manufacturing jobs. Overall numbers don't seem to suggest that. I mean, thank you, Biden, for the quick recovery after COVID. Thank you, Trump, for keeping with Obama's trend. Sorry, Trump, that it went down because of COVID. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't jump to any conclusions here. Wages. So hourly wages for the entire economy. So again, I see a steady trend. I don't know. It just doesn't look to me. So total private sector. So these do not include the government jobs. It's the private sector. So it seems like a steady trend. There was something going on here during COVID. So when wages went up a little bit, I guess, I don't know. Not sure how to explain that little spike, but if anything, it seems like it further accelerated under Biden. Like the slope is steeper under Biden than it was under Trump or under Obama. But again, it seems like it's just a steady trend. I mean, wages are slowly growing, and these are total absolute numbers per hour, right? So I'm not sure if it's adjusted for inflation or not. I suppose it is. But yeah, seasonally adjusted, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, Biden can brag about higher hourly wages under him than under Trump, but is it really because of him, or just a continuation of the trend? It seems to me like more of a continuation of the trend. Gas prices. Again, I'm not sure how much presidents affect gasoline prices and whether or not the gas prices are indicative of the state of the economy. I would be very, very careful here before making any attributions here. But I actually, when I came to the United States in 2001, and then before that 1999, I remember gas was like $1 a gallon. But then since then it's been going up. And so during Bush years, the wars in the Middle East obviously disrupted, or the supplies of oil from the Middle East was always a concern. And so prices went substantially up. And so right before the 2008 Great Recession prices, national average gasoline price for regular unleaded gas actually were close to $4, but then went sharply down. I remember here in North Carolina, you could even find in 2020 gas prices at 99 cents for a few days. Then they went back in the, that was during the pandemic, right? So during the pandemic went to 99 cents, but during the recession, same thing. So it was relatively stable under Obama, so I guess sharp rise after the recession, but yeah. But then actually it went somewhat down. Then again, somewhat up under Trump, and then sharply up under Biden, but now going down. So I don't know. I remember people were saying that, well, look, the gas is more expensive under Obama than it was under Bush. But if anything, that's because we saw the economic recovery after the Great Recession. So this low number, that was not an achievement on Bush's side, but because of the crash of the economy under Bush's watch. I guess if anything, we can blame him for the factors that led to the lower prices for gas. So I don't know. Yeah, I do see a much higher gas prices in 2023 under Biden. So many might be prone to blame him for it. But then I also see a substantial drop in the last year and a half. And so I suppose that's good. Prices were higher everywhere in the entire world, not in the United States, which tells me probably that had nothing to do with Biden per se. I do see an increase during Trump's years, but then again a drop probably due to COVID. So I don't know. I wouldn't again attribute the prices for gasoline too much to presidents, not directly at least. So it seems like economic cycles and pandemics have a much greater role here. This one is healthcare premiums. Again, almost a perfectly steady line. So I know that my healthcare premiums have dramatically increased over these years, dramatically. So, and when you look at the presidents here, yeah, I guess you could say that it's somewhat slowed under Biden and then increased again, but it looks to me like a steady line. So if anyone tells me that the healthcare cost or insurance annual premiums for the healthcare insurance was better under one president than the other, I would say, I don't know. It looks to me like a straight line, or like this line, right? And I don't really see any market differences from one president to another. If I remove these markings so that you know when one year ends and another one starts, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell me when one president took the office and the other one left. So people without medical insurance, interesting. So we definitely saw a drop during the Obama years. So here, that's one of a few areas where I actually believe that it was the actions of the president that did make a difference. Namely, Obamacare, we can like it, we can hate it, but it did reduce the number of people without the insurance. So when Obama took office, it was about 46 million people without the insurance. Then he passed, so the Obamacare was passed in the middle of his presidency. And yes, that led to a very, very noticeable sharp drop in the number of people without the insurance. Yes, that number went up somewhat under Trump. I don't know why they don't have the number for 2020. Maybe due to COVID, I think more people had coverage through the government. I don't know. But yes, so the numbers went up under Trump. So about 1.5 million people lost health insurance. And then it seems like it's going down under Biden. So it seems like about 1 million people acquired insurance. So I guess we can say that it's a better trend under Biden than it was under Trump. But overall, I guess the only time when it was really different, it was during the Obama years. Now, tax revenue federal, I'm not sure if it's a good indicator of how the economy is doing. So that's simply how many tax dollars the IRS collects. I'm not even sure if I would say the larger number is better or the lower number is better. Is it better when the tax agency collects more taxes, which may indicate healthier economic development growth, more companies make more money, pay more in taxes, or is it bad? The tax authorities increase tax burden. I don't know. But so yes, we clearly see again an upward trend overall. We saw a drop during the Great Recession. We saw a drop somewhat during the pandemic, 2020. It has dramatically increased, but then dropped and then increased during Biden. And as you recall, it's a similar shape that you saw stock market performance, S&P 500 and Dow Jones. So it just seems like when the companies are doing well, when the stock markets are doing well, they pay more in taxes. And so I suppose same thing with people. If we make more money, we pay more in taxes. So I guess it just follows the same trend. So I'm showing you these numbers, but I wouldn't read into them too much. So federal budget balance. So this one's interesting. So first, it looks like the last time when we had budget surplus, it was towards the end of Clinton term. So not only did he eliminate all of the budget deficit, but actually the government was making more money than spending money. Again, we can get into the philosophy as to whether or not it's even the right thing to do. Do you want to have surplus, or do you want to have deficit, or do you want to plan so that you have exactly as much as you need to spend and not a penny more or penny less? But we did see that under Bush, we started seeing the increase, basically budget deficit. It did increase somewhat under Obama. I assume that was at the time when the government was bailing out the banks, but then towards his final term, the situation improved dramatically. But then again, it got much worse under Trump. Again, was it because of Trump's uncontrolled spending? Was it because of Trump's um, tax reform, or was it the pandemic? I don't know. Then it looks like everything got really, really bad under Trump, but then Biden came and saved the day. But we just know that, again, the spending during the COVID was high. It started by Trump. I still remember, in fact, I have copies. I think Trump sent me the rescue, whatever it was called, pandemic bailout or pandemic stimulus check. I think it was twice actually under Trump, with Trump's signature, and then Biden continued doing the same. So that's what probably explains the budget deficit. So they were printing money, both of them. Then it returned, but again, was it because Biden was great, or did they just stop spending the money? I don't know. But then again, the trend continues. Like if we forget about COVID, it almost looks like now the trend is continuing under Biden where it was under Trump. So I'm not ready to say that one president was much better to the budget balance than another one. I mean, Clinton was better, so that I can tell you. Everybody else up and down, so it's not a clear answer to me. New house building permits, so under which president more houses were built. Tricky. So towards the end, so yes, more and more houses were built under Bill Clinton, but then I guess the trend continued for much of the first and second term under President Bush W. Then we saw a dramatic drop, but yes, the housing market 2008 crash. So obviously, was it because Bush did something wrong? Did something wrong was done under Clinton and finally came into the fruition under Bush? I don't know. But then after the crisis, I'm not sure if it was because of the new rules that Obama's administration imposed or anything else, but more houses were built for a long time, steadily growing. Again, with a sharp drop in 2020, not much activity due to COVID. Then again, rebounded under Biden, though now going down again. So the overall numbers are still better under Biden than they were under Trump, for example. But then the trend was positive under Trump, and it almost seems like it was positive and then negative under Biden. But was it because of Trump, or was it simply the continuation of the trend under Obama? I'm not ready to say that it was better under Trump than it is under Biden, or the other way around for that matter. So depending on whether you look at the absolute numbers or trends or continuation of the trends. So not an easy one. I did include the inequality index, so Gini, so basically the wealth inequality. And it seems to me that, yes, so we started doing something wrong in the 1980s. So up until that time, we saw the inequality dropping. So the difference between the rich and the poor, let's call it this way, was shrinking, but then it went sharply up during the years. The Reagan administration continued under the Bush administration, if anything, even sharper. Stabilized under Clinton, not bad. Then continued going up under Bush. Then economic recession started dropping, but then rebounded. So I don't know, hard to say. It seems like we are stuck at around 40, 41, and has not been changing much since then. So if anything, something happened under Reagan here, and so that's the only true remarkable change I see, and maybe Bush Senior, but not much else. So okay, trade balance. So do we sell more or buy more? Well, we sell less than we buy, and it's been like that forever. And yeah, it seems like it's a very similar trend that we saw with everything, like basically from stock market performance to GDP. So the trade deficit was getting worse and worse under Clinton even, Then it continued under Bush. Then the recession, as always, less economic activity. So that's when we buy fewer products from overseas. So the trade balance sort of normalizes a little bit. But then, yeah, I guess it was relatively stable under Obama, relatively stable under Trump. Got worse under Biden, but then got somewhat better. I don't know. It seems like the trade deficit is higher under Biden than it was before, but I'm not sure. It almost looks to me like it's a continuation of the same trend here. So I wouldn't blame this on a president too much. So wouldn't blame it on the president too much, because I see a clear change here because of the recession. I see a clear bump here because of COVID. I don't know what happened in 22. So trade wars, war in Ukraine probably. So I don't know. But again, overall, the trend is much more stable than people may think it is. So here is specifically China. So here in the United States, many people love to hate China these days, or when they talk about imports, they think China, even though China accounts only for a portion of imports. But anyway, imports from China, imports to China. One thing that is here to note is that the two are very, very similar. So when we talk about trade with China, we shouldn't be talking about Chinese goods coming into the United States. We should be also talking about American products going to China. And as you see, when things are going better, we both buy more and sell more. When COVID strikes, we both buy less and sell less. And so I don't know. So if this is Trump and this is Biden, it seems like we export more, but we also import more. Under Trump, we could see a drop in trade. So in his last 2 years, so we bought less from China, but we also sold less to China. Which one is better? So I don't know. If you look only at the exports, it may seem like because of Trump, we started buying fewer Chinese goods, but we also started selling less to China. So under Biden, situation recovered, and so we sell more and we buy more. I don't know. And then we seem to have like a downward, like we seem to buy less from China now, but actually it seems like we are selling more. So if anything, I seem to see a positive trend here. So we sell more to China comparative to how much we buy, but these are not dramatically different numbers. Immigration. So again, one of the hottest topics in the United States now. I was trying to figure out what these numbers mean. So for a long time, we would take the number of refugees, like all of the 60s and 70s, it was like 500,000. I suspect it was specifically like that number was targeted because it was remarkably stable. Then we had a few years up and down, not sure what exactly can explain it. Then during Reagan years, down, up, I don't know. Then for a long time, we have a steady trend downwards. So Clinton, Bush, steady drop from about 500-600 refugees a year to about 350. Then we see a sharp increase in 2004. I suspect it had something to do with the Middle East. It must have been like 1 year when, I don't know, maybe refugees like ally force or people in the Middle East who were helping the United States forces. I don't know, something happened here in 1 year. So, but then a year later there was a sharp drop again. So, but yeah, whatever that abnormality, the trend sort of continued. Then the number of refugees stabilized under Obama and stayed roughly stable. Then Trump actually started taking more and more. And then we got a drop during the COVID year, but then it started going back up under Biden. So it's higher under Biden than it was under Trump. But is it a good thing? So Biden the humanitarian or Trump the humanitarian? Is it something new? Because it looks like it just the trend continues with the slowdown due to COVID, but otherwise continues. So you decide what to make out of it. Then we have the illegal border crossings. So there is this number called encounters with migrants at the border. So basically these are the number of sort of illegal border crossing attempts caught by the border crossing. So we don't know how many actually cross, but this normally indicates how many people are crossing the border. So here is what we see. So During the Obama years, the number was relatively stable, going down if anything, and it was notably much lower under Obama than it was under Bush. I could not find the statistics going further back. I'm not sure if they kept those statistics. During Trump, the numbers were somewhat low, but actually they kept going up. And so interestingly, we had the peak in May 2019, so right in the middle of Trump's presidency. I don't know what exactly happened there. Why did it go so up? But then it sharply went down due to COVID, right? So, but if anything, the number was much higher under Trump. But then again, these are the encounters, so that's not how many illegal immigrants crossed the border. This is how many illegal immigrants were caught at the border. So maybe under Trump, more people were caught. So maybe that's why the number was larger. So does it mean more people were attempting to cross the border or more were caught? I don't know. Then the number again dropped during COVID, but then it went up again. So does it mean that Biden allowed more illegal immigrants into the country, or under Biden even more were caught? I don't know, hard to say. So it almost looks like more were, well, we know that more were caught, but was it indicative of more people trying to cross the border, or was it indicative of Biden's administration being more effective at catching them? So I don't know. But either way, it looks like whatever started under Trump, it sort of continued under Biden. But then looking at the last few years, the trend seems to be more towards, like down, especially since the peak of 2023. So it's a sharp decrease, like from 2,000, like 250,000 almost, to 58,000 the last time we had the number. So hard to say. I don't know. I'm reluctant to interpret these numbers as positive or negative because I really don't know. So it seems like more may be going on here. Finally, one of the mantras, especially from Trump's camp, is drill, baby, drill. So we will be drilling like crazy, drilling for oil. Well, I don't know. Again, I'm looking at the numbers, and surprisingly, the oil production in the United States started dropping under Clinton, continued to drop under Bush. You would think that Bush, being from Texas, oil state, having ties to the oil industry, the production would be increasing. And actually, no, it was decreasing. Then we see a sharp, steady increase in oil production during the Obama years. So who would have thought? But no, Obama was the driller. I mean, under Obama, more oil was produced almost twice as much under Obama than under Bush, for example. Then the trend continued under Trump, but then last year it dropped, I suspect due to COVID. But then again, it continued to grow under Biden. And so apparently now we are at the highest level of oil production under Biden than any other president before. Again, is it a continuation of the trend that started under Obama? Because it does look like the line here. Is it something new because there was a slowdown during the Trump years? I don't know, but it doesn't again look to me like one president was better for oil industry than another based on these numbers. If you see some president specific trend, let me know, but it looks like the first 3 years under Trump and the first 3 years under Biden are virtually identical, other than Biden's numbers are higher, but you make the overall final conclusion. But anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I hope that gives you a better understanding which president was the best, but also the lesson to me is that maybe presidents don't matter that much. Like for most of these figures that I showed you, if I remove the years, these lines that show when one presidential term ends and the other one starts, I suspect most of you wouldn't be even able to tell when one president takes the office and the other one leaves the office. I mean, like many of these look like straight lines. So you decide what to do, what to make out of these numbers. I report, you decide, as they say, right?